Welcome back into another edition of the Arrowhead Pride Chiefs Training Camp Report. Day 16, a full team practice is in the books. It's another light practice in St. Joseph, Missouri. I had a Sunday's preseason opener against the New Orleans Saints, but it's been a busy morning around Arrowhead Pride, so let me welcome in the fearless leader of Arrowhead Pride, Pete Sweeney. Swain, how is it up in St. Joe? You said it's barbecue day?
Yeah, each and every year, Zarda Barbecue is nice enough to not only feed the whole team as a treat, but they do offer some portions to the media as well. So we're in the media corps really excited to take on some Zarda Barbecue. Weather-wise, it's really heated up. It's been a pretty cool, relatively cool training camp, and the heat is back today. So I think the players were happy that it was another light practice.
It's one thing, working in the media covering teams is like you get excited about Super Bowls and games and all of that stuff. But I have never seen media members light up more than when there's free food, especially after a hot day in St. Joseph, Missouri. So I'm sure everybody is amped for that. And it was a light practice for the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll get right into it. Not practicing on Friday for the Chiefs, tight end Jody Fortson, defensive tackle Chris Jones still not in attendance. We'll get to him here pretty quick. Cornerback L'Jarius Sneed also out. No Kadarius Toney. And Derrick Wharton was out of practice as well on Friday. So I want to start with L'Jarius Sneed because, as I already mentioned, Sunday preseason opener against the New Orleans Saints. We don't necessarily expect the starters to see a ton of action in preseason game number one. But when do we need to really start to get worried about L'Jarius Sneed and this knee injury that has seemed to be an issue for the last couple of years?
Yeah, it doesn't seem good this time around. They've held him out for quite a while now. And, once you see it go more than a week, which I believe it has, you start to wonder, is there a bigger problem here? Like, are they going to have to do something when it comes to surgery or whatnot? Andy Reid has said when asked about it that it's just been swelling and trying to calm it down. But I just wonder as well, because it's just been a while. And I don't think we'll see him on Sunday. Jalen Watson will be your base cornerback with Trent McDuffie, with Joshua Williams coming on. But it is worth wondering, I think, at this point, Steve.
Yeah, it's, and we talked about Nazeeh Johnson, who is obviously done for the season, and that deep secondary for the Chiefs. But L'Jarius Sneed is a very important player in that secondary. So you hate to see this kind of missed time ahead of the regular season, but hopefully the Chiefs are confident that it isn't going to be a significant thing that requires surgery or something and winds up having him miss significant time to start the year. But we definitely need to see him get back on the practice field here pretty soon. And I already mentioned Chris Jones, obviously somebody that we would like to see get back on the practice field here pretty quick if he would actually report. I tend to believe at this point, and we shared a clip from Show and BK this morning expressing our thoughts that there's just a 0% chance Chris Jones is going to sit out regular season games. And Chris Jones decided to respond to that from his Twitter account on Arrowhead Pride saying, "You're just hoping I don't." I assume referencing that we're hoping he doesn't miss games. Pete, how are we feeling on Chris Jones at this point? I think by my tally, he's up to $850,000 in fines right now.
Well, I mean, this is the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Let this be a formal invitation to Chris. If he wants to come on to the show, he can make sure to get Show and BK back, and they can have a discussion about it. He doesn't have to just tweet back at us. But if he is listening, of course, which we can assume at this point. But yeah, I think it's just it seems like a disgruntled player. I'd mentioned this the last time around that Chris Jones, when he was looking for a contract, it did get a little bit dicey at the end, where you started to see the threat of a potential regular season holdout. I think the sooner that Jones gets back into the mix here, at St. Joe or with the team even back in Kansas City, I think things will ease. A lot of times when I think just in general, like people are away from each other, it's a little bit easier to send messaging in the sense of I'm being unhappy, where it's a lot harder to say those type of things to somebody's face. And so I think the sooner that these two sides can meet face to face in person, I think that's when you start to see some bending, and then hopefully you nip this in the bud, you get Chris in the building, and then you're good for 2023. I don't know when the social media and some of the mixed messaging ends. I think at a certain point it's going to get tiresome. I'm not sure if we've reached that already. in a sense. But like I said, I'll go back to that original point. I think the sooner these sides can get together face to face, I think that's how this thing gets resolved.
Yeah, and he's racking up the fines right now, but obviously he doesn't seem to be too concerned about that. Chiefs training camp does break next Wednesday, August 17th. So I think once we get into next week and we're pushing preseason game number 2 and the Chiefs are back at Arrowhead at their normal training facilities, if we don't get any kind of positive update there, like once they're back from St. Joseph, Missouri, I think that's when I'm going to start getting really worried. And I've been, Pete, we've talked about this a ton. I've been the guy that's like, there's no way he misses games. There's no chance. And I can understand why Chiefs fans are starting to get a little antsy about it, but I'm still there. I still don't believe he is going to miss a game. But if he doesn't report to the actual Arrowhead facilities, that's when I think you have to start getting really worried.
I mean, like, let's just put it this way. And I did watch the clip where I'm showing BK. Great podcast. If you missed it, go back and listen to it if you're on the podcast network right now. But what I would say is I don't disagree with them necessarily, where like I don't believe Chris Jones is going to miss games. But I think what scares me is how many of us that are saying that now we're like, yeah, I mean, he'll be at camp within the first few days, or he won't skip all of training camp. He'll be there the second week. He'll be there the third week. We keep saying the same thing, and we're just assuming, oh, yeah, this will get resolved. Until it gets resolved, it's not resolved. And I think that is on the table. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm not 100% certain that he's not going to miss regular season games anymore.
Yeah, we keep pushing the deadline back. Like and it's not the Chiefs setting up deadlines. Like we keep kind of setting these deadlines ourselves. And it was training camp, then it was when veterans report, and we just keep pushing it back because honestly, at this point, it feels like he doesn't care about the money at all. He cares more about the offer that he's getting from the Chiefs and the level of respect that I think that they are showing him by the offer that they are putting on the table. So obviously we'll keep tabs on this and hope to see him sooner rather than later for the Kansas City Chiefs. Another player that was out of practice on Friday, Derrick Wharton, and I didn't catch the injury updates, Pete, during the press conferences, but did the Chiefs offer anything on Wharton? Was this just kind of a rest day for a player who's coming back from a significant injury, and it was a light day at practice anyway?
We'll have to go back and see. I'll be quite honest with you, a little tardy to getting down to Andy Reid. As it turned out, I'll share this because he did mention how he listens to all the reports, but the brother of Echo Boydo wanted to chat about Echo's chances to make the roster, and I think there's a real chance he could push through now that Najee Johnson is injured. But I ended up missing the beginning of Reid. So no Turk today. I'd imagine it's just a rest day, but you'll have to go to that from the podium portion to find out what Reid said at the beginning. I usually there's about a 10 or 15 minute window between the end of practice and when we get down there, Steve. And quite honestly, I missed the beginning. I'm usually pretty good at that, but good to talk to Echo's brother, and we're rooting for him.
Yeah, we do love the shout out there, and we're all Echo Boydo fans here on the on Arrowhead Pride. But yeah, so if you're listening to us on the podcast page, we will have all the press conferences available for you immediately following the commercial break. We heard from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and George Karlaftis, so I encourage everybody to stick around and check that out. As always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we are doing here on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Follow all of our training camp coverage. We've got you covered preseason game number 1 this Sunday with the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show immediately following Chiefs and Saints. You can follow Pete on Twitter at PG Sween. But with all that, we finally got some live game action coming up. We will talk to you guys again on Sunday.